Today is Tuesday, January 25th, 2025. It is 10 a.m. and I welcome everybody to the Technical Advisory Committee meeting of the Bismarck-Mandan MPO. And we can get started as we call the roll.
Ben Arith. Here. Dan Shriak.
Here.
Deidre Hughes. Gabe Schell.
Here.
John Sackey.
Here.
Andrew Strami.
Here.
Jarek Wignes. Greg Fazer.
Here.
Mitch Flanagan.
Here.
Natalie Pierce. Dean Schloss.
Here.
Will Hutchins.
Here.
And Chair Ripple.
Here. Thank you, Stephen. The first item on the agenda is the review and possible approval of the minutes from the December 16th meeting. Are there any additions or corrections to the December 16th meeting minutes? Or do we have a motion to approve?
This is Gabe. I move to approve.
I have a first and a second.
Greg Fazer, second.
Thanks, Greg. Roll call, please.
Ben Arith.
Yes.
Dan Shriak.
Yes.
Gabe Schell.
Yes.
John Sackey.
Yes.
Andrew Strami.
Yes.
Greg Fazer.
Yes.
Mitch Flanagan.
Yes.
Dean Schloss.
Yes.
Will Hutchins.
Yes.
And Chair Ripple.
Yes, the minutes are approved. Number 2 on the agenda is the 2025-2028 Transportation Improvement Program amendments presented by Stephen Larson.
Thank you very much, Chair. Give me one moment to share screen with everyone. All right, so this month, the MPO processed 3 amendments to the 2025 through 2028 Transportation Improvement Program. We advertised these amendments for the required 15-day public comment period. We did not receive any comments on them. It's a pretty straightforward amendments this month. The amendments add 3 new chip seal coat projects to the program. So the first is on I-94 from the North Dakota 25 junction to 3 miles east of the 83 junction. The second is on I-194 from the I-94 junction to Bismarck Expressway. And the third amendment is on the Memorial Highway Expressway Bridge. Again, these are all chip seal projects that DOT is going to be performing this year and has requested to be added to the 25 fiscal year. Are there any questions on these amendments?
Just maybe a couple clarifications. When you say, or when the DOT says the 3 miles east of the 83 junction, which 83 junction are you referring to? I guess the question, is it through all of Bismarck or is it stops?
It's not going to get that stuff that you're possibly going to reconstruct on the expressway. I think it's.
I believe it's referring, so the first one is on I-94, and so, if I'm not mistaken, this would be 3 miles east of the 83-94 intersection, which I think might be State Street, honestly. So it might be 3 miles east of it.
161 to the other truck stop.
Okay, so it's not the Sterling 83, it's the Bismarck State Street 83 junction. Okay, just there's 2 junctions, so I just didn't know which junction we're referring to, I guess is what I wanted to clarify.
Yep.
And then second question, maybe is it our description or the DOT's description on Exhibit C when it talks about a chip seal on the Memorial Highway / Expressway bridge. I don't believe the bridge has an asphalt deck that could accommodate a chip seal. I think it's probably short of the bridge would be my guess. Is that? So
Yeah,
maybe
that was the description that I got for the project, but yeah, Mike, I think it's the area around the bridge that's being worked on, and that was just the location that I was given as reference.
Okay, so as long as we aren't putting the chip seal on the bridge, that's what I was curious about. Thank you much.
Thanks, Gabe. Any other comments or questions regarding these amendments?
No, Gabe, that's a good point. I'm gonna look into that just to make sure we got this right, and if there's something wrong, I'll be back next month. This is exactly what Stephen was told to input, and then, I did not question it when it came in the first time, so, but that's a good point. Yeah, and I believe, Stephen, you're probably right on that, but I wouldn't, yeah, I hate to get into conjecture before we know for sure.
Thank you, Will.
Any other comments or questions on the amendments?
Maybe
Gabe?
one more question. When it says the local cost of any of these projects, many of them are interstate projects that do not have a local cost share, but that last one on the Memorial Highway / Expressway Bridge, maybe that, my question relates to where the work's being performed, because I don't, if that's work done in the Bismarck side, yep, makes sense, but I don't know if by that description, if the DOT would be actually doing any work on the east side of the river, and therefore if that local cost would be all Mandan. So I guess I haven't probably been engaged with on that project to know what's happening, so I'm assuming that it's not ours, but if I'm mistaken, please let us know, and we'll get some money in our 25 budget to accommodate that local cost share that we might be responsible for.
Yeah, I based that local split on previous projects at that location. So that, yeah, that might be something, Will, if you could look into that to see which jurisdiction would be responsible for the local on that project, that would be helpful.
Yeah, there's probably some sort of participation agreement when the bridge was created, I'm assuming, correct, Gabe?
There would be for the bridge, but I'm gonna go back to, I don't think this work is being performed
Oh,
on the
yeah.
bridge and the east side of the bridge on the expressway side anyway. You had there might be some work there, and if that's the case, great, we'll gladly participate. I just don't know by this description where that work's being performed is all.
Yeah, good point. This is yeah. Hopefully I can get this, and there's something major that needs to happen here. We might be able to, if there's I can get this probably answered before the policy board, but I don't know if that makes a real difference or not. If you guys are comfortable approving it, knowing that this is a DOT project, the only thing that might be of concern for you guys is what is that breakdown of the local match and what's it for? So I could probably get that for you here as soon as the meeting ends, and then, or even during the meeting, I'll send this email and hopefully get an answer, but,
If you just want to let me know what it is, Will, if you get the information before policy board, I can add that to my presentation. But
Okay.
if not, it can just be an administrative modification because this would
Okay.
be a very minor change. So
okay, great. Sorry, I'm a little sick today, so I'm not clear-headed. So,
But
thank you.
thanks for the clarifications, everyone. Appreciate it.
Yep.
Okay. We'll move forward with these three amendments with the understanding that if there is any clarification that changes the local match provided on Exhibit C amendment, that we will treat that as an administrative modification pending approval of these amendments. Any other questions or comments at this time? If not, this was advertised as a public hearing, and so I will open the public hearing. This is an opportunity for any members of the public, either in person or attending remotely, to provide us with any comments on any of these three amendments. Calling twice for public comment on the three amendments to the 2025-28 TIP. And a third call. Seeing or hearing no comments, I'll close the public hearing and ask for the wishes of the board.
This is Gabe. I'd move to approve as presented and discussed.
I have a first. Is there a second?
This is Andrew, I'll second.
Thank you, Andrew. Roll call, please.
Ben Arith,
Yes.
Dan Shriak,
Yes.
Gabe Shell,
Yes.
John Sackey,
Yes.
Andrew Strami,
Yes.
Greg Fazer,
Yes.
Mitch Flanagan,
Yes.
Dean Schloss,
Yes.
Will Hutchings,
Yes.
Chair Ripple.
Yes, thank you. Amendments are approved as presented. Number 3 on our agenda is the 2024 Pavement Condition Collection and Analysis Final Report with Kurt Kiefer of QES. Kurt, are you with us online?
Yes, I am, and hopefully you guys can hear me okay.
We can hear you just fine, Kurt. Thank you. Go
Perfect.
ahead.
Excellent. Well, I am sharing the PowerPoint presentation now, and hopefully this is working better than it did last month. Can you guys see? Can you see my screen?
We
Okay.
can, thank you.
Perfect. Well, Happy New Year, everyone, and I am happy to be presenting the results of the 2024 Pavement Conditions and Analysis Report that QES performed for the MPO. We are currently running a parallel project with the city of Bismarck, collecting data for their local roads, but for the purposes of this presentation, we're only addressing the conditions of the roadways collected for the MPO jurisdiction roads. So just to give a little bit of an overview here about the project, we collected pavement condition data on approximately 225 centerline miles of collector and arterial roadways throughout the region. We captured pavement condition index values for each roadway, as well as international roughness index values. The PCI values essentially provide an indication of the surface operational condition of each roadway based off of visible pavement distresses. So cracking, rutting, potholes, those types of distresses are factored into arriving at a pavement condition index score, which ranges on a scale from 0 to 100, with 100 representing a perfect pavement and 0 representing a perfectly imperfect pavement. The International Roughness Index values, IRI values, essentially assess how rough the pavement surface is, so how bumpy the road is that you're driving along. Higher IRI values represent rougher pavements. So we collected those condition measures for the roadways inspected, and then we entered that information into the paver pavement management system that the MPO had funded the implementation of several years ago. I think all the way back to 2012 was the first survey that I'd worked on with the team there. And as part of this project, we updated the paver pavement management system, input the pavement condition data, and then ran a few analyses to determine what level of maintenance and rehabilitation, primarily rehabilitation, that would be needed for the roadways in consideration. And then we took these results and we put them into a final report, which was submitted, and it's been circulated for comments. We received comments over the last couple of weeks and addressed those. So the MPO now has a final report to go along with this presentation. The project approach was pretty straightforward. We kicked off the project. We had a pretty compressed window to complete the work this year. Started in September. The kickoff meeting collected the data September, October, and then processed the data October, November through December. Did our final QC/QA and went submitted that then to the MPO and the jurisdictions for review. Received comments, entered everything, corrected any issues that were identified, and then performed the analyses, the pavement analyses using paver, and then developed a final report for the MPO. As part of this task, we did do a comprehensive update of the roadways under the MPO's jurisdiction and made some updates to the existing GIS, Geographical Information System, line work representing those roadways, and we actually ended up updating the paver database as well to account for those updates. So you can see here, this is a pretty simplistic chart here, but it basically gives you an idea of the amount or the total centerline mileage of different pavement surface types throughout the jurisdiction. So the city of Bismarck, of course, has the highest mileage, approximately 137 miles, with the majority of those roadways being asphalt. Just over 100 miles are asphalt. But then we also have not so insignificant centerline mileage that's comprised of concrete pavements. So 36 miles is a pretty healthy concrete mileage distribution as well. And then, of course, the city of Mandan has about 45 miles of roadways that were considered, probably a three-quarter, one-quarter split between asphalt and concrete. And then Burleigh County, as well as Morton. And then there's the city of Lincoln was included as well. The 1.4, the small stretch through the downtown area of the city was included as well. The pavement condition survey was performed using a laser crack measurement system that was mounted on a more comprehensive system developed by Roadway Asset Services. Basically, what we're looking at here is a Ford Transit van that has several camera systems on it, as well as laser systems for capturing roadway imagery, right-of-way imagery, as well as the longitudinal and transverse profile of the roads. The big system here that the majority of this project was based off of is a laser crack measurement system mounted off the back of the van. And that system collects high-resolution 3D imagery of the pavement surface. And with that 3D imagery, we're able to run several algorithms. It's not necessarily AI, but it's rules-based, more machine learning type algorithms to identify cracks on the pavement surface. Once we've run the imagery through that initial processing, we have a team of actual physical team of people reviewing the imagery to ensure that the cracks are identified correctly and that we don't have any false positives or negatives. And one of the advantages to this system is that it's completely independent of ambient lighting conditions. These camera systems off the back of the van have laser illumination.
Say, Kurt,
Yes.
we seem to have lost your screen.
Oh, okay. Let me see here.
That might be on the side.
It might be on our side. We had a Teams.
Here, let me stop sharing. Can you guys still see my video?
Yeah, it's our central computer that's malfunctioning. We'll see if we can't get
Oh, no
you signed
worries.
back
No
in.
worries. Okay. Can you guys see and hear me okay? Or is it just this?
Kurt, so is he still screen sharing right now? No. No, okay. I can see you fine, Kurt, so maybe if you share your screen, then
Okay.
we'll be able to get that through the monitors. There we go.
Okay. How about, is it working?
Yes.
Okay. Good deal. So I'll just jump back describing the system here. This laser crack measuring system mounted off the rear bumper of the Ford Transit van is what collects the 3D pavement imagery, and that's what we use for processing the cracking data as well as the other pavement distress data. So that's really the highlight of this data acquisition system in terms of pavement distress collection and identification. The key capabilities are basically that we're able to capture all of this imagery. The 3D pavement imagery is collected continuously, so there's no sampling. It's a 100% survey of both. We drove both lanes of the roads of the MPO's roadways to capture real comprehensive data of the pavement conditions. And then, of course, we're capturing the International Roughness Index values as well through this. So, and the best part of everything is that it's geo-referenced. So we have a very high grade. It was originally a military grade system, but now it's available to the private sector for capturing GPS coordinates continuously. And even if we lose satellite contact, we have an inertial measurement system on board, which is basically a gyroscope that has some fancy technology in it that allows us to correct for position, even if we've lost satellite connectivity, which is really nice. And then most importantly, these surveys, back in the day when I first started doing these types of surveys almost 30 years ago, we did these manually, walking down the side of the roadway or doing windshield surveys. And the safety considerations, especially as urban areas and traffic has just gotten more intense over the last several decades, these systems basically provide data collection without having any posing any obstruction to traffic operations. Data collection is performed at posted speeds, and we don't need any lane closures while we're collecting data. So anyway, that's the system that we deployed. And here's just an image kind of how this 3D laser scanning works. The red line is the laser that's providing the illumination, and then the camera is basically picking up a continuous image. Like the camera it's a line scan camera, so it's basically recording little transverse slices continuously. And we're able to see with these systems down to 1 millimeter wide cracks, which is rather remarkable. And we just see it on the surface. We're not measuring really a depth of crack, but we're measuring the width of the crack more accurately. Because depth of crack, the cracks kind of go in different directions once they're below the surface. So it's really more complicated to get a depth. But this provides an indication based off of the width of the crack. So here we can see some of the imagery, example imagery that was collected, and then how we actually view that imagery in the data processing systems. And here we see the downward imagery on the left, as well as the automation in terms of what was identified, the cracks that were identified, the blue lines there. And then we can see that in our portal for actual data review, which is the a system that RAS, Roadway Asset Services, has developed for their processing, as well as for us to use when we're doing our QCQA. And then the IRI values, the roughness values, they're collected off of this little system off the front bumper. This is called a road surface profiler, and that's measuring the bumpiness of the roadways as we're going down. There are 2 lasers in each wheel path, and those lasers, on top of each laser is a accelerometer. And so as we're going down the roadway, we're measuring the distance that the laser travels to the pavement surface, and then based off the motion, the accelerations of the accelerometer, we're able to remove the vehicle motion from that and capture the actual smoothness of the roadway from that system. So it's a really nice system, pretty fancy. The IRI values for municipal pavement management aren't necessarily used as often as they are for DOT data collection. That smoothness at higher speeds becomes more of a safety issue for roads. But for municipal applications, it can be really important at intersections for identifying where there might be corrugation due to braking of truck traffic and heavier vehicles. So here we can see the results of the pavement condition survey. We developed with the MPO rating scale to simplify things back when we first implemented Paver. We take the PCI values and we basically bracket them. We have ranges from 71 to 100, 56 to 70, and 0 to 55. Adequate, degraded, unsatisfactory. Unsatisfactory is any road that essentially needs major rehabilitation, either an overlay or reconstruction or partial reconstruction. Degraded roads are in that area where they could benefit from some less than full rehabilitation, maybe a thinner overlay, some localized patching, localized rehabilitation, but they're not in as terrible as condition as some of the other roads. Adequate are roadways that are really performing pretty well and would most likely benefit from some preventive maintenance. And I know the city of Bismarck does an excellent job with their preventive maintenance of concrete roads. The joint filling operations that the city implements up there are exceptional. And I was fortunate enough to see those in action a few years back when we were doing the survey. So that type of preventive maintenance, getting ahead of problems, is really helpful to keep roadways that are in good condition in good condition. So as far as overall conditions, the roadways under consideration had an average PCI score shown in the chart in the upper right-hand corner. Total 243 miles surveyed, 84 average condition, which is really, really good. So the roadways that were surveyed are definitely in adequate condition, and the IRI value at 181 is generally considered smooth for municipal roadways. So kudos to you guys for keeping these roads in pretty darn good condition. There are, of course, a few roads that do need some work in the area, and those were identified. And you can see the distribution of those roads down here in the lower left. Kind of the charts down here is how the breakout in each jurisdiction in terms of adequate, degraded, unsatisfactory roads. And just to give you guys a little bit of perspective on things, most agencies that I've worked with over the last several decades have average conditions somewhere in the 60s. So the jurisdictions, or at least the roadways that we surveyed, and again, these are the arterials and collector roadways, the functionally classified roadways that are, subject to the heavier traffic within your region, are in relatively good shape. And so that's good. As I'm sure you are all aware, some of the local roads and distribution of conditions for local roads tends to be a little bit lower. But most roads that I've seen that are functionally classified agencies have the PCI scores range. Let me step back to 60. I'd say in the mid 70s. So you guys are definitely, on the higher side of average conditions for arterial and collector roadways. Let's see here. Here's a map showing the roads, and you can see a lot of green roads that are in adequate condition. The yellow is a little bit harder to see, but this map is, we did include this in the final report, so you guys can zoom in on this and get a little bit better idea of where the yellow roads are. But the red does pop out. We have some west of the river up that way, and a couple a little bit further east, and then just a couple kind of downtown, kind of going through Bismarck that you can see on there as well. So overall, really good shape and continue to be maintained very well. And then the IRI values, these you can see a lot of green here too, but some that are kind of marginal and a few that are rough throughout the area. And those IRI values, those might not necessarily drive a rehabilitation project, but they could assist in prioritizing work. So if you have a roadway that maybe has a PCI score that's marginal or kind of in that yellow category, and the roughness is red, that might be prioritized a little bit higher than a road that has a marginal PCI score and a marginal roughness score as well. So just something to consider in prioritizing projects. So with the multi-year maintenance and rehabilitation planning that we performed for the MPO, we identified some practical M&R activities that we had used in the past when doing these analyses, and then we considered the functional classification, different pavement surface types, and we updated unit costs with input from the city of Bismarck on pricing within the region. And we developed a decision matrix based off of PCI scores, IRI rating, functional classification, surface type, to identify what treatment should be applied to what pavement at what time, so we could have a little bit of a forecast in terms of what type of work might be needed over the next several years, next 7 years, I should say. So we did the analysis, and using that decision matrix in paver, we set critical PCI values a little bit higher than what we normally do. And critical PCI values are the threshold at which we consider kind of the threshold between preventive maintenance and more major type of rehabilitation. So we assumed for asphalt roadways a critical PCI value of 65 and 75 for concrete roadways. And the reason that we set these a little bit higher, typically they're in the maybe both would be in the 60s, kind of 60 for asphalt and 70 for 65 for concrete, is we've realized that when we run these analyses over time, by the time the projects actually get done, we can run the analysis and it will give us a theoretical date for when the work should be done. But just the reality of actually programming work and getting jobs done, it takes a couple extra years before that actually turns into a real project. So by setting the scores a little bit higher, there's a little bit of lag room between when the work is triggered and then when it would actually get done. And that's something that we've begun doing with all of our projects, just to help kind of time these things a little bit better, so that by the time the work is needed, it's actually being done at that correct time. And then as far as the inflation rate, we know it's been all over the place the last several years, but for the period moving forward, we just assumed a rate of 3% in our analysis. And again, this is a network level analysis, so we're not developing detailed projects for the MPO or making those recommendations. We're just providing orders of magnitude in terms of cost. So as you move forward with these projects, please don't take them as gospel. Again, as you develop projects based off of these recommendations, of course, do an engineering estimate on them and come up with real costs. And again, one thing to caveat this with is the costs that we've developed are only for the paving. We're not including any right-of-way improvements, any complete streets type of stuff that might be going on in conjunction with these projects. The cost estimates that we've put into the report are simply for the rehabilitation of the pavements. So with that, the results of the 7-year analyses, we found that for the city of Bismarck, the roadways that were considered the functionally classified roadways, we're looking at total funding over the next 7 years in order to keep that PCI score up in the 80s, or 84 to 82. We're looking at close to $22 million over that 7-year period. And then for the city of Mandan, about $13 million to go from an 80 to an 84. And again, we're trying to maintain that existing PCI score as close as possible, given the centerline mileage and the way that the segmentation of the roadways is done. Burleigh County, about 6.2, and then Morton County, 1.4 million. With the city of Lincoln, we ended up in a position where the PCI score is so high, it's at a 90 for that roadway through there. We never get to a point where we're triggering work on that road. Even at a 78, it's still above the 65 critical PCI value that would trigger it for major rehabilitation. So that stretch of roadway, based off of the condition score that we captured this time, as well as the models that we ran, shows it deteriorating to 78. Now, that's not to say that there shouldn't be any preventive maintenance being done in that period of time, but based off of the condition that it was at now, the way that the models work, we weren't able to predict any cracking that would occur, what preventive maintenance should be done. So keep that in mind, City of Lincoln. You're not off the hook. Keep an eye on those roadways and make sure that the preventive maintenance is being applied over the next several years. And then, in summary, we performed the pavement condition survey this past fall. We processed the data in Paver, developed baseline PCI scores, and then ran several analyses. And we discovered, as I mentioned, the average PCI score of the roads under consideration was 84, which is very good. It's excellent for functionally classified roads. And we developed a very comprehensive, we updated the Paver program, updated the roadway network, and identified several maintenance and rehabilitation needs that should be considered over the next 7 years. And we, in the Appendix B of the report that we submitted, you can dive into that and see what recommendation for each segment of roadway we developed using the Paver software. So with that, I'll go ahead and open it up to questions.
Thanks for a great presentation, Kurt. Any questions from the board on Kurt's final presentation or on the final report? Gabe?
Thank you, Chair Ripple. Questions/comments here. So the first one would just be gratitude and thanks for getting this information. We in the city of Bismarck utilize this both on the functionally classified roadway as well as our local roads to help inform what sort of projects we'll be working on. So the program itself will show that degradation over time, but it's good every 4 or 5 years to come in and reassess and understand is the one that we thought was an 80 in the program really an 80, or was it a 85, or was it a 75, and just kind of ground truths all of those. So it's very beneficial for us to get this information to help inform those decisions. I do want to point out just kind of the timing component of this and the amount of work that we've done, especially on the functionally classified roads in the last couple of years. If we would have done this same analysis 2 years ago, before the DOT did overlays on Expressway, University Drive, 7th, 9th Street, and before the city reconstructed Ash Cooley Drive and 43rd and South Washington, we would have found a lot more yellow and red on these maps, especially on the functionally classified system. So it is just a point in time. It shows the investments that we've made, and it's good that we've made those. So if you're comparing this year's report to maybe something 4 years ago, it might have a drastically different, required dollar amount to maintain the pavement at its current investment because of, honestly, the investment they have made in the last 4 years. So just pointing that out, if someone's looking at this one compared to previous ones, it's likely different there. I would say it is encouraging the areas that we had on the Bismarck side, on the functional class in particular, that showed pavement needs are the same roadways where we have project programs. So if we saw Front Avenue was an area on our map that was, series of reds and yellows, that is a project that we have urban grant funding for that will be hopefully finishing up our plans this year and constructing next year. Same could be said for some of even the functionally classified roadway network that we don't use federal funds for, but just fund locally. It's good to see that we're programming projects even as soon as 2025 here on some of those roadways that we're showing as good candidates for those types of improvements. So thank you. My one question I do have for you, Kurt, I know when we were going through some of the concepts of the map that Bismarck, that we noted on some of our roadways, didn't seem to line up with the recent work that was performed. Can you confirm that the appendix then was also updated with that new information? I think the report was fine and Appendix A was fine. Just want to confirm that Appendix B also was there updated information, and if not, if we'd be able to just get an updated version of that for our file.
Gabe, thank you for your comments, and it's been a pleasure working with you guys on this project. I think I'm glad that the data is being used, and it does reflect the significant investments that you guys have made in the roadway network there. Regarding Appendix B, my understanding is that Mona has gone through and updated all that, but I will let me confirm that that was submitted, that the correct appendix was submitted with the final report. If there are any, if that was not the case, we'll send an update to you. But I'll get with her right after this call and confirm. And if there was, if we need to update anything in there, we'll go ahead and make those updates.
Okay, thank you, Kurt.
Sure.
Thanks, Kurt. I just really want to thank you for your diligence on this project. I know that, we started late with our collections, and that was not due to any fault on your part at all, but we had a pretty tight timeline for this particular project, and I appreciate, like I said, your diligence in getting everything wrapped up towards the end with the final report as we closed in on the end of the contract and the year end of the calendar year. So are there any other comments or questions regarding the report or the presentation? Okay. With that, we would be looking for a motion from the TAC to recommend approval of the final report for the pavement conditions analysis project to be considered by Policy Board at their meeting this afternoon. Would there be any such indication?
This is Gabe. I would move to approve.
Okay, we have a first with Gabe. Is there a second?
Greg, I'll second.
Thank you, Greg. Roll call, please.
Ben Arith,
Yes.
Dan Shriak,
Yes.
Gabe Shell,
Yes.
John Sackey,
Yes.
Andrew Strami.
Yes.
Jarek Wigness, are you able to speak?
Yes.
All right, perfect. Greg Fazer,
Yes.
Mitch Flanagan,
Yes.
Dean Schloss,
Yes.
Will Hutchins,
Yes.
and Chair Ripple.
Yes. The final
Kim,
report.
I was gonna say, Kim, on the last time, I do have an update if you want to do it now or later.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Will.
So for the third TIP amendment that you guys approved is actually in North Dakota A10 chip seal project. So that's from I-194 Memorial Highway to the Bismarck Expressway Bridge. So the whole entire project is on the Mandan side, and it doesn't actually involve the bridge. That's just the scope extends.
Okay, thanks. So, and that's on the third one that had the question on the local match as well.
Yep, so that would be Mandan
All
funds, correct?
Mandan.
Yep.
No Bismarck funds, so
Okay, I'll make a note of that for my policy board presentation.
thanks for the update, Will. And thanks for noting that, Stephen. Going back to the pavement condition analysis project, that final report has been approved for recommended approval by the policy board. So moving on to number 4, 2025 ITS RA update and the ATAC master agreement addendum. Those are Exhibits E and F in your packet, beginning on page 57. The master agreement with Advanced Traffic Analysis Center, or ATAC, with NDSU was signed last fall. This is a 3-year master agreement, and the annual fee for this agreement covers the update and maintenance to the MPO's traffic demand model. Any additional modeling that is required is provided through addendums to the master agreement, and the ITS regional architecture update is one of those items. Again, Exhibit E on page 57 of your packet.
And I have that pulled up on the screen for everyone as well.
Thank you very much, Stephen. That does include the scope of work for the ITS RA update. What is ITS? Intelligent transportation systems deal with types of technology that create a safer and more efficient, effective transportation system. They can be as basic as two-way radio communications between service vehicles and a central dispatch location, or they can be very robust, such as our interstate cameras to detect weather, detect and monitor weather and roadway conditions, or to facilitate in traffic incident management. So it deals with a wide array of technology to help us with our transportation system. The ITS regional architecture needs to be updated periodically so that it is in alignment with the federal architecture. This is a requirement, and we typically do that in the MPO area every 3 to 5 years. Our last regional architecture was updated in 2021. Having a regional architecture that is updated and in alignment with the federal architecture allows our jurisdictions to gain funding for those technology projects using federal sources. The addendum that is in the packet, and that is on 61, page 61, provides the scope of work and the total cost at $34,998. This would have a 20% local match beyond the 80% that's paid by the MPO. That 20% local share would be broken down based on a standard population breakdown. I guess I can give you some round numbers if you're interested in that. The MPO portion would be $27,998. City of Bismarck would come in at about $4,200. Mandan at $1,400. Burleigh County, $1,050. And Morton County and Lincoln each at $175. I'd be happy to answer any questions. This is a very standard update that the MPO does facilitate, as I said, every 3 to 5 years based on need. And we would be looking for a recommendation of approval by the policy board at their meeting this afternoon. Any questions, Gabe?
Kim, thank you. As I look at the group that was listed as technical stakeholders, I think that list is appropriate. I might just add that there's probably additional ones we would need to discuss. It's not just the Bismarck District, it's Bismarck Central Office that would be able to communicate with these devices. If the whole point of this is that if we put a traffic signal out there, how do we share that information with the district or central office, or vice versa? If they have a camera, how do they share that information with us or our emergency services? So it's not just city trying to share with the DOT, it's also the other direction. I would note too, if there's room at the table for whatever IT stakeholders on the state side to involve them in that conversation. We do a lot of work and we have this great regional architecture and we all have a plan, but just the concept of how do we communicate and open up the right port that allows someone else to get into it is a huge deal. And it's a really hard thing that we get a lot of pushback, if you will, from opening up ports, which is good because we don't want everyone to get into there. But it is a challenge for us to share information with the state and vice versa because of those technical cybersecurity concerns that are real. It's just, I don't know if the FHWA's architecture is in line with what maybe other federal agencies that are involved in cybersecurity might say as best practices to close some of those ports and that connectivity. So I just bring that because I just don't want to have this plan that says what we have to do, and then when we try to initialize that and make it happen, we can't because of some unknown that we just didn't know about. My goal would be to try to figure out what those are now as part of this update to help inform that.
Thanks, Gabe. I think those would be good discussions to have right at the onset of the development of the study when we start talking with ATAC.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for the suggestions. Anything
Yeah.
else? Will?
Yeah, this is Will. Gabe, that's a really good point you just brought up, and we actually are encountering something similar in another MPO. And I've been looking for another community that has encountered this and has had to go through the kind of questions that IT will ask. Are you the resident expert on what kind of risk that creates and some of the concerns that have had to be overcome when working with the city's IT and trying to give ATAG access to this stuff?
Will, I wouldn't say that I'm the expert. You can probably start with me though, and I'll get you directed to the right people. Once we start talking about port forwarding, I tone out and I don't know what we're talking about anymore.
Absolutely, same here. Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Any other questions or comments on the addendum to the master agreement? If not, we would be looking for a motion for recommendation of approval.
This is Ben. I would move approval of the item as presented with the suggestions that Gabe noted.
Thank you, Ben. I have a first. Is there a second?
Sandra, I'll second that.
Thank you, Andrew. Roll call, please.
Ben Arith.
Yes.
Dan Shrek.
Yes.
Gabe Shell.
Yes.
John Stackey.
Yes.
Andrew Strami.
Yes.
Jarek Wigness.
Yes.
Greg Fazer.
Yes.
Mitch Flanagan.
Yes.
Dean Schloss.
Yes.
Will Hutchins.
Yes.
Chair Ripple.
Yes. Thank you. The motion passes. Number 5 on the agenda is the 2025 Safety Policy Study. It's been a while since we've heard about this particular study. The consultant to conduct the study or perform the study was actually approved by this board and policy board back in October. That consultant was SRF Consulting Group. And today we have Luke Champa, who is with us, and he'll lend us his insights to this study. The objective was originally to examine the safety countermeasures that are being used by the MPO's jurisdictions on functionally classified roadways and intersections, and then to best determine best practices for employing countermeasures in the future based on the roadway type and the land use around it. And with that, I will turn it over to Luke Champa, and he can provide his vision as to how this study is going to roll out.
Thanks, Chair Ripple. Can everyone hear me all right?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. Unfortunately, I'm driving, so any hand gestures or anything like that, please shout if you want to cut me off. I'll just provide a quick update here. So as Chair Ripple mentioned, we kicked this off very recently for the 2025 Safety Policy Study. The consultant team includes SRF Consulting Group. My name is Luke Champa, and I'll be serving as the project manager on this. We've also partnered with Emergent Strategies Group and Jolene Reek, who's out of Bismarck. She'll be leading public engagement. We are hitting the ground running. So next week, I do think Kim sent a doodle poll out. Last week, we're hoping to schedule our first steering committee next week to kick things off and go through those fun logistics of scope and what have you. So please, a reminder, I'll just plug that if you haven't taken the doodle poll already for next week's steering committee meeting, please do so. I think Kim might send a reminder as well. As far as schedule for the policy study, safety policy study, we're looking at end of year. and that would include a final report and TAC and policy board action on a final document by December 31st, 2025. So we are hitting the ground running. We're comfortable with the schedule, even though contracting did take an extra month or two than we were anticipating, which we should probably start anticipating that because it seems to happen quite often at this point. The study will identify, and Chair Ripple already mentioned this, but the study will identify and categorize types of safety countermeasures that are used on the federal aid and the local network. The goals of this study are to identify, the measures that have been used on streets and which types of measures are best practices. So, for example, we'll be relying heavily on FHWA's published, list of proven safety countermeasures with real-world data and results, that quantifiable information that we can utilize when making decisions. Another goal of this study is how local jurisdictions may be more consistent in implementing proven safety countermeasures and best practices, again, providing that guide to local jurisdictions to make the right decision in the right location for safety countermeasure. And then we are also going to be positioning each community to utilize and pursue the Safe Streets and Roads for All, or SS4A funding, for future project implementation and or future planning and demonstration funds that will help forward transportation safety in the Bismarck-Mandan MPO region. Our project approach includes, and I'll hit on these pretty quick, but we'll be building upon your strong foundation of ongoing efforts toward improving transportation safety in the Bismarck region. We'll be conducting a robust safety and crash analysis and identify a high injury network, or HIN. The high injury network is the network with the highest density of severe crashes. That includes fatalities and incapacitating or life-changing injuries. So we could start to see where the troubling areas are from a safety perspective. Our engagement and collaboration approach has an emphasis on focus groups and or stakeholders, and then strategic pop-up events, really being strategic about who we're talking to, having some more I would call them intimate meetings with smaller groups of folks. And then we'll be putting together a list of safety strategies and a process for future project selection. Again, just which proven safety countermeasure, when do we implement it, where do we implement it, what are the expected results. That's a big piece of this. And then two last points here on the project approach is that our intent is to provide a comprehensive safety action plan, a compliant safety action plan through the 2025 safety policy study that will meet FHWA and USDOT's published guidelines of what they are looking for in order to be eligible and to pursue the SS4A funding. And so we'll be looking closely at that and ensuring that this is a unique plan and a unique safety action plan. However, we've outlined a framework that will provide a compliant safety action plan, but also give you the product that you want. And lastly, that unique component of the plan, which I think bodes well for a safety action plan, is the policy focused. And really, this is going to be a product that can be used for decision making, when scoping and identifying projects and selecting those countermeasures for improving safety in the Bismarck region. We really want this to be part of your safety guidance and a tool that's heavily relied upon moving forward to advance safety. So I'm really looking forward to getting going on this one. I'm sorry you can't see my face today, and I'm driving in the car, but I'm going to be quiet unless there's any other questions. So thank you.
Thank you, Luke. Are there any questions for Luke about the study? The approach? Nothing? Okay. I just want to say that we're very excited to get this study kicked off, and as he said, really hit the ground running. We have a lot to accomplish, and we're really looking forward to a good work product, especially to be able to utilize some of those SS4A funds that are still available. Okay, with that, I guess we will move on to number 6 item on the agenda, which is the Government Partners Program. I will let you know that the memorandum of agreement for the Government Partners Program was fully executed in November. We have been invoiced by Big Sky Passenger Rail Authority for the annual membership. Payment is being processed, and so I will be reaching out to jurisdictional representatives, letting you know that your financial management divisions will be able to expect that invoice coming from the MPO for each of your portions of that billing. And in addition, there will be a request on my correspondence to please provide me with any questions or concerns that you have regarding the restoration of passenger rail to our region. The Government Partners Program will be providing a webinar opportunity in February, and they are going to develop the content based on the feedback that we provide. So they want to make sure that they are tailoring it to our needs and that they're answering our very specific questions as to how this is going to impact our region. So just a couple of things to keep in mind there. Any questions on that right now? Okay. Thank you. Moving on to item number 7, bicycle-friendly community. Back in 2024, we applied for a renewal of our bronze designation as a bicycle-friendly community through the League of American Bicyclists. In order to maintain our bronze designation, we must renew that application every 4 years, and that was our 4-year renewal period. We were told that we would have information in the fall of 2024 regarding that application and our renewal. However, the League of American Bicyclists has been undergoing some reporting of their own that has kind of delayed some of the processing for the applications for the bicycle-friendly communities. We were told that we would hear something in December, and now it's January, so we're not really sure, but we know that we're going to hear something soon. In the meantime, we have been offered a really great opportunity through the League of American Bicyclists. They have been offered some grant funding that will allow them to provide 3 cities throughout the country with a workshop opportunity. This is a 1.5 day workshop to facilitate bicycle-friendly community efforts by communities. And because of our participation in BFC networking that they've been offering quarterly, they thought we perhaps were a good candidate for this BFC workshop. We did accept their offer. It is free of charge. The MPO will be hosting the workshop. We're definitely reaching out to our partners for any help that we can garner in bringing this into our communities, because we are pretty excited. We think this is going to be a great opportunity for us. The dates have been set for May 21st and May 22nd. We've basically blocked 2 full days because we don't know how it's going to shake out exactly. One of the days will include a bike audit route. So we'll actually be gearing up and getting on bicycles and going on a 4 to 7 mile bike audit. So this is kind of new for us. We're going to have to come up with a route, and also we've talked to Bismarck Parks and Rec about the bike share program and perhaps using their bicycles. We don't know if that's a go yet or not, but we have a lot of details to work out in the coming months. The classroom training will take place at the Bismarck Public Works Building. Steve Salway has offered their facilities there, so we know that we do have a meeting place, and there will be more information to come on this as we move through the process. Any questions right now? Gabe?
Just a quick question, Kim, is the workshop intended for like the staff components, or is it public focused, or a little of both? Can you maybe speak to that?
Yeah, thank you, Gabe. It is going to be a little bit of both. They're looking for anybody who might be a bicycle advocate within the community, and so that means, whether it's on a professional level, recreational level, we're going to be able to open this up to approximately 40 to 50 people. So, we can have a pretty good-sized group before we have to think about turning anybody away. So, yeah, thank you for that.
No, that sounds excellent. I'm writing it down, and I'll block some time. Can't wait.
Perfect.
Chair Ripple and tech member Shell. That's a good point too. And I was going to note that oftentimes they sponsor what are called mayor's rides, and the idea is to get your elected officials out there biking as well. And if there's an opportunity that this could provide to maybe not the full 47 miles, but to break it up in such a way that allow our elected officials to kind of see things with a different lens, it wouldn't be a bad idea either. So.
Thanks for the suggestion, Will. Definitely a good opportunity for our elected officials to experience things firsthand, for sure. Okay. Without any other questions, is there any other business? Ben?
Thank you, Chair Ripple. Wanted to inform the group that we did host interviews for the executive director position for the Bismarck-Mandan MPO, and am excited and happy to note that Kim Ripple will be the next executive director for the Bismarck-Mandan MPO based on an interview panel made up of many of you in this group. So appreciate your participation in that process, and whenever you get a chance, extend a congratulations to Kim. I'm really excited to see her leadership in this new role and where she's going to take the MPO. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Ben. And I just want to extend my thanks to everybody, all of my coworkers, colleagues, family, friends, everybody who offered me encouragement and support and said, go for it. I appreciate that very much. It means more than you know. And we'll be updating our website with contact information. And of course, I'm always on the other end of a telephone or a computer. If you can't, just walk down the hall and come visit me. So appreciate it. Thank you very much. Any other business for the good of the order? All right. Well, we will adjourn the meeting. Everybody go out and stay warm and stay healthy. We'll see you next month.